Hey, what's going on YouTube? Jake here with Venture Visuals, and on this channel we break down popular music video effects and editing techniques for creative edits. Today we are going to be replicating some of the effects used in Quando Rondo's music videos using Premiere Pro and Adobe After Effects. Shout out to my man Beepo, who left a comment below one of my earlier videos on this channel and recommended that I do a breakdown of some of Quando Rondo's music videos. I've been listening to his music for a while, but I had never really checked out his music videos, and his music videos are awesome. So I appreciate you letting me know that I should make this video. And if you're new to the channel and have an artist that you really like to watch, let me know down below and I'll do a breakdown tutorial on their video effects in the future. So I watched a lot of Quando Rondo's music videos in preparation for making this tutorial. A lot of Quando Rondo's older stuff is less visual effect based, and it's just more raw shots. But more recently, he's been working with a guy called Ace the Shooter, and I'll leave a link for him down below. And this guy has been shooting way more cinematic visuals and using way more effects. The first effect we're going to be breaking down today is these rotoscope transitions. So I have a clip from the Blueprint video by Quando Rondo, and if I hit play here, you can see kind of these background transitions and these popping out transitions. This is all just a variety of rotoscoping techniques that he's using. So I'm going to take this second clip here and drag it up one layer. I'm going to extend it out over this next clip a little bit, and then I'm going to make a cut right where it meets the next clip. Now what I'm going to do is right click on it, hit nest, hit OK, right click on it again and hit replace with After Effects composition. This is going to bring this clip into After Effects, where we are going to do some light rotoscoping to get a similar look. So here in After Effects, I'm just going to come up to my roto brush tool. I'm going to double click on our video clip, hold Command plus to zoom in. I'm going to start highlighting around the outline, and I'm just going to keep pressing the 2 key on my keyboard to move frame to frame, just highlighting him, making sure that the rotoscope stays pretty much good on the outline of his body. And then I'm going to click back into my composition once I'm done with that, and now we can see he's cut out on this transparent background. If you don't see the transparent background, that's because you got to toggle your transparency grid down here. So if I hit Command S and it saves back into Adobe Premiere Pro, and we scroll over where that is, we can see where he's cut out. What I'm gonna do now is drag this rotoscope layer up to the top layer right here, and then drag this bottom layer out. So now we have like the original clip looking right here, except that this top clip is just the cutout of him. So now we're gonna do this little background transition. I'm gonna cut this middle clip because this is gonna be our background transition, and that's gonna be our cutout. So with this background clip selected, I'm gonna come over here to an effect called offset. I'm gonna click and drag that onto this background layer. I'm gonna go ahead and keyframe the shift center 2 here in the beginning, and then I'm gonna go ahead and bring the background down so it starts to kind of cycle through. What I'm gonna do now that I have both those keyframes made, right, we start here with the original spot in the beginning, and then it starts to move, so we got that background kind of change in there. Right click on this first keyframe and easy ease out, drop down the shift center 2 and go ahead and make a little bit of a curve there on my keyframe editor. And we're going to go ahead and type Gaussian blur, throw that onto the background layer here. We're going to make sure that it's only for the vertical pixels, and we're going to keyframe it so that it gets pretty blurry, but it doesn't start blurry. So that's about as blurry as we want it. So I'm going to make a keyframe right there, and that's going to be all the way towards the end. And then in the beginning, when it's not started yet, it's just going to be normal. So it starts normal and then it gets blurrier as it continues to move. I do notice that in their videos too, they also move the background so it kind of slides off of the rotoscope layer. So what we're going to do to make that happen is keyframe the motion. So we're just going to hit a keyframe under position, and then we're going to move it down towards the bottom, and we're going to make sure that happens more towards the end. Maybe the roll starts and then the background kind of transitions like that. We'll easy ease out this background layer. Go ahead and make sure that we make a little nice curve for that as well. And now we should get something like this. We're not getting any motion blur on the edge of this clip. So I'm just gonna right click on this clip and hit replace with After Effects composition. That's gonna pull it here into After Effects. As you can see, we got no motion blur happening on this harsh edge right here. It doesn't look good. So we need to turn motion blur on. And now you can see we kind of get that nice feather on the edge as the transition happens. So it's just a way to make it look a little bit smoother. And I realized that they do this a lot in Quando Rondo's music videos. They use a lot of motion blur, which makes their motion transition look a lot smoother. Hop back into Premiere Pro, and now we get that nice blur happening. Now we need to make something happen with him so he doesn't just abruptly exit the frame right there. So let's try to zoom him up. So let's use an effect called transform. We're gonna throw a transform on this rotoscope layer up here. We're gonna keyframe the position and scale here in the beginning, and then towards the end, we're gonna zoom him up quite a bit, right? So he kind of like zooms up, and we're gonna move the position over a little bit. Maybe he slides out to the right a little bit. His motion is kind of like that. And now what we're gonna do is turn the shutter angle up. So we got that like nice motion blur happening. And now what I'm gonna do is just move the keyframe over so it doesn't start right away. Kind of happens as the transition starts to move here. I'll move these second keyframes over a little bit so he starts to kind of pop out of the frame after the background slides, right? So maybe like that right there, boom. That is really sick right there. I think that's really cool. So we're gonna right click on these keyframes and easy ease out those keyframes as well. So now when we play it back, you can see what the full transition looks like. We're also gonna do a similar effect here just using Premiere Pro. So I noticed that they do this one a lot here in his music videos, which is just a freeze frame cutout with like a glitch. So we're gonna come here to the beginning of this second clip. We're gonna take a screenshot of this first frame. We're gonna make sure it imports into the project. I'm gonna click and drag that screenshot onto the very first frame here, and we're gonna make a cut and make it about 9 frames there. So we're gonna make sure that we place it over this first clip, right? So it's gonna go like this, freeze frame, then into the second clip. So what we need to do is just highlight his figure with this opacity pen tool. We're just gonna go ahead and just kind of make some curves. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're gonna be using that glitch effect, and it's gonna be kind of distorting the outline of him anyways. So I'm not gonna worry too much about getting absolutely perfect with this pen mask here, but by all means, if you're doing your own music videos and you wanna spend some extra time on this part of the process, it is definitely worth doing so because it's gonna have a better quality result regardless of what types of effects you're going to use on the person you're cutting out. So definitely try to get it as close as possible. With this cutout, I'm going to right click on it, hit nest, hit OK, and now we're going to come over here to effects and look up an effect called transform. Throw one of those on there as well. We're going to turn the shutter angle way up. Let's turn it all the way up to 360. We're going to keyframe the scale and position, and we're just going to move the keyframes around in this little area that he's in. We're going to change the scale and position by a couple of points, and then we're also gonna just, you know, make a bunch of keyframes here. So he's kind of bouncing all over the place with these position and scale keyframes. And it's gonna give us that kind of like jittery effect here. So after you make a few keyframes, what you can do is just kind of copy paste these keyframes around the timeline. So, you know, we'll just paste them around here, kind of make them random. So now as I scroll over, you can see he kind of bounces around and he's got that blur because we turned up the shutter angle on it, right? The only other thing I wanna do for this clip is throw on this effect called brightness and contrast. So I'm going to type in brightness and contrast. And we're going to keyframe the brightness and contrast so that this cutout of him kind of flickers around a little bit, and we'll kind of flicker the colors a little bit. And there's a lot of ways to add a flicker onto, you know, these cutouts. You could use the Luma corrector, you could use Lumetri color, you could use a lot of different effects to get this kind of like bright flickering effect that we're making right now. So we've got a couple keyframes here. I'm just going to copy paste these keyframes. So now we have something like this. If you want to learn more about rotoscoping techniques and how to do these different types of cutout effects and transitions, definitely check out my channel. I have a couple other videos on rotoscoping and how to do these types of effects. So let's check out what these effects look like back to back. This next effect is used in Quando Rondo's music video 6.0 Business, and it's this kind of shake flash effect that you can do in Premiere Pro. You can just see these kind of flash zoom effects that they're throwing over these clips. So we're just going to replicate this same effect on these clips right here. So let's just go right here with it. We're just going to make a cut right where this drum beat is. Now what I'm going to do is come up here to motion, and we're just going to make some keyframes for position and scale. We're just going to zoom in a little bit, you know, go a couple frames over, over, zoom out a little bit, move over to the right a little bit, zoom back in a little bit, just move them around a lot, you know? That's how you get these kind of like jitter effects. You just gotta keyframe. The effect that they're using in their videos happens a lot faster, so let's just move these second keyframes over to the beginning and just make a cut right there. And then we're gonna bring these last keyframes back to regular. So we're gonna delete these keyframes on the second clip and hit reset. And now when I play this back, we'll get something like this. We're gonna go ahead and type in fast blur, and I'm gonna drag one of those onto this clip as well. And we're gonna change it from horizontal and vertical to just horizontal. We're gonna change the blurriness to like 55, and then we're gonna make a mask here with this blurriness. We might even make a couple masks here. Let's just go down here at the bottom a little bit. We're just gonna drag this mask out so we get really blurry at the bottom but not really at the top. If I want to do another one, I'll just hit this rectangle tool again. We can do a little mask up here so it gets blurry up here. So now we're kind of getting this out of focus, in focus mix right here that's gonna make this clip look even more unique. What I'm gonna do is just feather these masks a little bit so it blends in more with that hard edge on either one, right? So now we're not getting that hard edge. And now when I scroll over, you can see where those masks are and how it's impacting kind of the overall effect, right? And that's something that they do in Quando Rondo's music videos with this effect, is they don't make the entire clip blurry. You can see it right here. They just make this bottom half blurry and then they leave the top half in focus. I think whatever the video editor is doing, whether he's custom made this or not, I would imagine he's using kind of like a preset he might have downloaded. That's how we're getting this same kind of look here in our clip. Now what the other clip is doing in the Quando Rondo music videos, it's flashing. So we're gonna type in Luma corrector and throw a Luma corrector onto this clip as well. Now you can also use a brightness and contrast. It just depends on what type of look you're going for. So we're gonna make a keyframe here, brightness, contrast, gamma, pedestal, gain, contrast level, and we're gonna make this, you know, really bright in the beginning, and we'll turn up the gain a little bit. So you can see it's changing different parts of the image. I'm just gonna have it start really bright there. Then it's gonna get, you know, kind of go a little bit darker. It's gonna flash again towards the end. So make sure you're making keyframes for all these, you know, settings that you're planning on changing. You know, let's increase the gamma here at the end again, change the pedestal, change the gain. I really like this gain knob. Take that gamma down a little bit, take that pedestal down a little bit here at the end, not a whole lot. I'm gonna move those keyframes here close to the end. And now when I scroll over, we kind of get that clip that's like kind of flashing, that flashing effect. When I play that back in full motion, we're gonna get this effect. So the best part about doing all of this hard work is that we can just save this effect as a preset. So if I just hold Command on Mac and click on all of these elements here under the effect controls, I'm gonna go ahead and right click on all of them and hit Save Preset. Let's save this as Flash Blur Effect and hit OK. I'll just come over here to my preset tab underneath my effects, click on presets, and here is my flash blur effect. I can drag that onto this new clip, and that's gonna add all of the effects that we made the other effect with on this new clip, right? So we can just save these effects as presets as we go so that we don't have to keep making them from scratch. How awesome is that? This next effect is more of a color / style effect, and it's used in Quando Rondo's music video Imperfect Flower. You can see as I scroll over some of these shots, we kind of get this like very soft glow type of look on these shots. You can see here, you know, if I scroll in, he's got kind of this glow, this aura to him. This whole background looks very soft and kind of glowy, you know, it's very like surreal looking. So this is all done with color and a little bit of layering. What I'm gonna do is just copy paste these clips on top of themselves. So I'm just gonna highlight both those clips, hold Option, drag them up one layer, and now what I'm gonna do is change the opacity to lighten. So we're gonna change the opacity of both those top layers to lighten, and then we're gonna throw on a Gaussian blur on top of both of those layers. We're here on this top clip. What we're gonna do is the same thing. We're gonna take this Gaussian blur, throw it on this top clip. We already set it to lighten. And now what we're gonna do is just change that blurriness factor. Let's go up to let's go to 20 for this one, right? So now what I'm gonna do is just take the opacity of this layer down a little bit. Let's go to like 70%. And what you can also do is play around with the blending modes and figure out if there's better looks. I really like how screen looks. It kind of brightens up the overall image. It makes him look soft and kind of glow-like. What you can also do is increase the scale of this top layer by just a few pixels. So maybe go to, instead of 100, we'll be at 102. So that gives us more of like that soft edge glow on the sides of his outline. And I actually have another video on my channel if you want to check it out that goes a little bit more in depth about how to create these types of effects. And I'll include a link for that video below. This next effect is an effect that I talk about a lot on this channel, and it is a mask transition. So I noticed that in a lot of Quando Rondo's music videos, they utilize their environments around them to create these really dope transitions. And you can do the same thing by using these mask transition techniques. So here in Quando Rondo's Real Step Up music video, you can see these transitions where it wipes across the screen and it reveals the clip underneath. These are all just easy mask transitions that they're using here. And as I scroll over some of these, you can see that they're just using a mask along the sides of these objects to create these transitions. So I have a couple clips here of my dude Francois from a music video I shot a couple years ago, and as he's rapping here in this video clip, I'm walking in front of these big pillars. So these pillars give us a perfect opportunity to create the mask transition the exact same way they would create a mask transition in the Quando Rondo music video. So what I want this to do is start revealing the next clip on the left side as it sweeps across the screen. So what I'm going to do is go to the very first frame where we still have this entire clip in focus and we don't have any of that next clip that's going to reveal itself yet. And I'm going to create a square mask here, and we're just going to highlight these points and drag them to the corners on this frame. So boom, now we have the corners. Now that we have these points around our edges here, we can keyframe these points to reveal this clip underneath, right? So here's our second clip. It's this video clip of him walking around outside with this kind of glitch effect on him. And with this frame selected, I'm gonna go ahead and make a keyframe on the mask path. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut this clip on top so that it gets a little bit easier for us to maneuver. And now I'm going to scroll over as this pillar kind of goes across the frame. So let's go all the way to the end where it's pretty much out of the frame, right about there. Perfect. We're going to highlight this mask, and as you can see, the mask has not moved yet. What we need to do is just click on these leftmost points on the top and bottom, and then shift click those points where our pillar will end, right about there. If we just scroll over here, we can see how our mask looks. So there in the beginning it looks all right, but then towards the end it comes off of the pillar and this little gap area needs to be corrected. So here in my keyframes, we can see if I click on the mask, we can see where the line is up. Now what I'm going to do is just click on those points again, like how we did before, and hold shift and just move them over so that it lines up with the edge of this pillar. As you can see, there's another frame that doesn't look too hot right there. So I'm just going to hold mask and we're going to line up this side of the mask. Boom. When you create these masks, you definitely want to go frame by frame and just make sure everything looks how it's supposed to look. Make sure that the mask is as good as possible. Otherwise, you're going to have these weird gaps that pop up from time to time that just don't make the mask transition look right. We can see, you know, we got that effect working for us now. It looks really good. And I'm just going to increase the feather on this mask a little bit so we kind of get more of that blurred edge. It's going to show us our mask transition and reveal the clip underneath. And this is exactly what they do in Quando Rondo's music videos. This last effect we're gonna do is kind of this crazy blob effect that I thought was really dope, and it's used in Quando Rondo's music video Real Step Up. If I just scroll over here, we can see kind of how this blob effect looks as it comes out from behind the cutout of him. And this effect is also done using rotoscoping and turbulent displace. We're gonna make a very similar effect to this using our own footage. What I'm gonna do is just find a point where I want this blob to start happening. So maybe like halfway through this clip, I'm gonna make a cut and I'm gonna right click on this second part of this clip and hit nest, and I'm gonna hit OK. Now what I'm gonna do is right click on it again, hit replace with After Effects composition. That's gonna bring my clip into After Effects. Here in After Effects, I'm going to do the rotoscope. So I'm just going to take the rotoscope tool and start tracing my subject outline. And I'm going to hit 2 on my keyboard to go from frame by frame and just highlight his outline. So we want to make sure we get a pretty good outline of his cutout. So this is looking good. The edges look really nice and lined up with his body. I'm going to come back here to composition. We're going to hold Command D on this layer to duplicate it. On this layer behind him, we're going to open up our transform. We're going to make him a little bit bigger. And we're also going to add a turbulent displace onto this layer. What I'm gonna do now is just increase this amount up to like 400, and then we're gonna decrease the size from 100 to more like 60. So now we get this crazy blob look. Scroll down here on our timeline and make a keyframe for the size and amount under turbulent displace. Come back here to the very beginning and take them down back to pretty much where it is originally. We don't want to have really anything. We want it to start kind of like blobbing out from the edges. And then what we're also gonna do is keyframe this scale. So we're gonna keyframe the scale so that it gets bigger as the clip goes on. Start it at 100% and then it'll get bigger as the clip goes forward, and he'll get a little bit more blob-like. You can see here in the beginning, we're not getting that blob effect as much as we'd want to. Let's actually move these second keyframes closer to the beginning. So maybe like 6 frames in, and we're gonna ease those keyframes in as well. So it gets, you know, goes into that blob like that. We can also play around with this displacement, all these different displacement looks, which is going to give us a bunch of different kind of blob looks. And I actually like that twist smoother. That looks pretty dope right here on this effect. Now what I'm going to do is just add some glow to it a little bit. So I'm just going to type in glow over here in After Effects, throw that onto my background blob layer. So now we're getting some of those nice colors around the sides. You can play around with the glow intensity, the radius, you know, that's gonna soften the edges a little bit more, the glow threshold. This is a really interesting look we're getting right here. That's very similar to what they're doing in the Quando Rondo music video. So now what we can do is just hit Command S and hop back here into Premiere Pro. And we're gonna see now we got this clip. So this is our rotoscope layer. We need to drag that to the video layer above and extend the original clip down below. So now we have this effect happening. And if you want me to break down any of the effects that we talked about today a little bit more in detail, let me know down in the comments and I'd be happy to help all of you guys out there who have questions. And if you're a video editor who wants to add some sauce to your visuals, definitely check out my website, venturevisuals.com. I got overlays, transitions, and a bunch of other packs on there that are designed to help video editors like myself out there achieve higher quality visuals. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out the links down below. And I appreciate you guys tuning in for another great tutorial. Until next time, I'm Jake Venner. Peace out.